Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Realtors Talk podcast brought to you by Everything Property. My name is Jess as usual, and today I'm not alone. As you can see, I'm here with Big T of Abuja and Big Shola of Abuja. Hi guys, welcome to another episode. So please introduce yourself so our viewers can start from here.
Okay, my name is Shola Mokoga of Properties by Shola.
And you already know our popular face of Everything Property, Big T.
I have no idea what Big T means. So we don't give people the wrong impression. My name is Tayo, Everything Property, and it's great to be on the podcast again.
All right, welcome back. So if you guys are joining us again, thank you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And if you're new here, be sure to stick around some more because we have interesting topics to share with you. So today we are talking about buying versus renting. We're exploring the advantages and disadvantages of either renting or buying properties here in Abuja. That's why we have Mr. Tayo and Mr. Shola on the show today, because these two gentlemen have proven to have scored the highest sales, property sales in Abuja. In case they come for you on the streets, get ready to drop some bars. Yeah, so just let's start from you, Shola. What is it like either buying or renting based on your experience? Which would you prefer to your clients?
Okay, well, in my own opinion, I feel everyone would prefer buying a property because I think a lot of Nigerians see it as like the key to financial freedom and also to happiness. Also buying a property, is very profitable. And it's not like renting a property doesn't have its own advantages. But of course, I would rather go for buying a property to renting.
How about you, Mr. T? Would you rather buy or rent?
I would rather rent. Well, obviously, I see, real estate investing as, like you said, a great pathway to financial freedom. And renting for me serves my own purpose. I feel like you don't necessarily have to be sitting on a property that you own to prove to yourself or to society or whoever you've got money. I'd rather have that money, making me more money. In Abuja, for example, we have a lot of people who, they have 50, 60, maybe even 100 million. Instead of going out to buy the house of their dreams, they do what we call, as brokers, we call it flipping. Right, so you can stay in a rented apartment, maybe that will set you back 5 million per annum. You put the 95, into buying a fixer or you fix it up, sell it. If you're lucky, you can do this twice a year and make a good margin. So if you're doing even 20% on 100 million, that's 20 million, 2 times, that's 40 million, which pays your rent for about how many years? For a lot of years, for 8 years at least.
Depends on where you're renting.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's also that. So I feel like, for me personally, what I usually recommend for people who have that kind of cash, at least when you are starting out, right, before you spend a lot of money acquiring one property and sitting on it for so long, that could be, multiplying somewhere for you. So that's how I see it.
So I would have said either buying or renting. People always say, okay, you said renting, you said buying. But we fail to realize that the country that we live in, sometimes we never have house rent money, not to talk of money to buy house. So how do you, we are going into business now. So how do you pull yourself out from that place of, okay, I'm in a rental space now, but I would like to buy. What are the strategies that you ought to put in place? Or I'm living in a family house now and I would like to rent. What are the steps you need to take? Because especially in Abuja, I don't know about other places, buying is expensive. Yeah. So what's that thing that we should put in mind before either buying or renting? We'll start with you.
Okay, so let's start with renting. Obviously, you want to know your income or have some sort of estimate of how much you can bring in annually, and then know where your work or your business is located, and then marry that together, right? It will help you determine where you should stay or how much you should spend on a rental property, and then your lifestyle also. It depends on who you are. Some of us like to live in the middle of the action. Some people would rather stay in Gwagwalada. And there's nothing wrong with staying in Gwagwalada, right? But
why are you saying that after
so if everything that is important to you is in Gwagwalada, your place of worship, your business and all that, sure, definitely stay in Gwagwalada. You cannot have all of those in Gwagwalada and live in the city center. It makes no sense, right? Then once that is, put together, married together, you'll be able to figure out, where you should rent or what you should rent. Then with acquiring, like you said, is a bit, Nigeria is, it is kind of, I think it has always been difficult, the way I see it. I mean, our parents face these similar challenges. Most of them that were able to hold on to a lot of property or acquire, a few properties over, time, were able to do that because, they had steady, income. Some of them had like government jobs. Some of them made the mistake of sitting on one property their entire life. They spent 10, 15 years building one property, right? When they could have spread that, there are these stories of people in Lagos who would have bought a piece of land in Lekki or somewhere for maybe $10,000, and they could afford it, they could afford it 100 times over, but they just felt like, oh, this is a bush, and so I think we also have that right now. Some of us, especially young people, some people think, oh, you have to own one massive property in the middle of the city center, but I don't think it has to be that way, right? You can try and look at, identify the plan for the city. Like in the FCT, for example, there's a master plan. In Lagos also, there's some sort of master plan. Port Harcourt and some other major cities. So if you understand the master plan, know what direction the government is tilting, because really what gives you value when you're acquiring, what gives you that capital appreciation is the kind of infrastructure that comes into that area after you have bought, right? So if you can identify that, or you work with people who can identify that, and then you start keying in little by little. If it's 500K, you buy. If it's 1 million, just as soon as you can afford it, it will be good to just start holding on to something. Might not be much today, but
it will be bigger tomorrow.
Yeah, and a lot of people who own properties right now, they started from renting.
Yeah.
And it was in that period, they were able to mop up funds, go into payment plans, maybe 2 years before actually getting their properties.
Okay, so let's talk about affordability and market conditions, right? I know there are times where, because now in this Abuja, you're the Guinness World Record holder of selling property. So there are times where you, should I use the word, have hopes on selling maybe tons, like 10 at a time, or maybe in a month. And then because of a certain market, condition or situation politically, or the alleys, it affects sales. So how does that affect you? How does that affect the buyer? How does that affect the system in general?
Okay, in terms of the financials, buying a property, it has huge financial implications. Like for instance, the closing cost, you have the moving costs, you have the taxes, you have the legals. When you think of all these things, you might want to be discouraged into maybe purchasing a property.
So I guess what Shola is trying to say is, when you look at the acquisition process, it can be a bit stressful, not just psychologically and all that, but also physically and financially. Now, if you want to do all the payment plans and all that, you want to find very good deals. It takes a lot of resources, and then the most important of the resources is your time. You're
to get good location.
Exactly. You're trying to make a living. You're trying to sustain your rent. You're trying to fend for your family. In the middle of all of this, you still have to work with a real estate agent or broker or whatever to find that deal that works for you, either in the short or the long term. So, for example, now we have the whole fuel subsidy thing going on, and all the developers are reviewing their prices. A couple weeks ago, we put a call across to a lot of our prospective buyers that, okay, now is the time for you to buy something. Just buy something, before we all know that everyone review their prices. I think the subsidy thing happened like 1 month before we all were waiting for it. And people who had keyed in at least into one deal or the other would be better off for it.
So would
also, during the COVID, COVID also affected prices, because after COVID we had the whole dollar, dollar kept going up and all that. It affected. We saw some properties, do 2x in a very short
period of time.
In a very short period. So and there were some clients who were probably interested before COVID, and after COVID, your hearing prices is like 2x or 3x. You won't. Amount. Yes, you won't go for that property. You probably look for a cheaper one.
Yeah. So between buying and renting, which one has a higher level of maintenance and responsibility?
Well,
would you overlook your own personal property or pay attention to someone else's, or vice versa?
I think there was a time when landlords would actually take care of certain maintenance in the house, but I don't know if they do that anymore. But when you own your own property, you have no choice. You have to take care of your property,
I feel like there's a little bit of laziness when it comes to your own property, because it's your own and let it be there. I'll do it later.
It depends on the individual.
Exactly.
It depends on the individual.
If the individual understands that, it's a property, and the more you add value to it, the better it would fetch you. Whenever you want to offload the property, you keep touching it. And then vice versa, like the other side of the coin, if you are renting also, and you feel like you're getting good value for your money, obviously you want where you are renting to also look good, right? Not just on the inside, but also on the outside. So you also be, touching it a bit here and there. Then I think that question, you were trying to lean towards the responsibilities, right, of the tenant and the landlord. So on the landlord's part, most landlords these days, they do this. Initially, it wasn't really a thing in the FCT, most especially, but now it's standard. We see that a lot with our rental properties. Caution deposit. They take a huge caution deposit, sometimes between 10 to 15% of the value of the rent, and then sometimes even higher if it's a brand new property and they want to ensure that this tenant is reasonable. So when landlords do that, they sort of take their hands off everything, because they feel like, if you stay there for 1, 2, 3 years, I have some cash that I can fall back on to fix up.
You would want to collect your money.
Then
the caution so you maintaining
the property also yourself. So it makes sense, right? And then when some tenants or some tenants say, oh no, the caution deposit is too high. Personally, I would say, if it was your house, wouldn't you want to hold on to something to make sure this person maintains the house? And then once they hear that, they go, if it was my property.
Because eventually, some tenants will actually leave the house, and you would probably spend what you collected from them times two to fix the property. Yeah. So I think that caution fee thing is very good.
Very, very key. And then another thing, sorry, just to add to it. If you're building a rental property, I know the general, we'll all agree that most people, when they're building a rental property, they try not to put in too much, right?
Because
so they can maximize their returns. So, but even if you're not putting in too much, you should do like the best basic stuff, best basic toilets,
good finishing, good lighting, styling, and all of that.
Yes, then your screening and painting has to be on point to make the place look good.
Kitchen cabinets and everything.
Those things have to be on point. Yeah. So with like painting, you can still do like emulsion. You don't have to go the Dulux satin way, right? Because of course that's way more expensive. So if your tenant wants that, they can now come in and make such improvements. But the moment they step into the property, they should be able to say, getting value here.
I think why a lot of rental property owners don't really pay attention to these things is because they just feel, it's commercial. I'm not going to live in there. So whoever is going to live in there will have to manage. Yeah.
All right. So let's talk numbers now. They always say that real estate is not get rich quick scheme. It's not a Ponzi scheme. It's a wealth generation, whatever. So you invest the sum of 150 million naira on a 4-bedroom terrace, but you decide to rent it out. How long will it take for you to gain your money back?
All right, let me take this. Let me take this. So, to be honest, sometimes it depends on how you get into the investment. That's why we always recommend. I like that we're all brokers here.
Yeah.
We always start by telling our clients, why do you want to acquire this property? Because if you have a why, then you would know, you'll be sure of your where and how much you're putting in, right? So that will also, you also have to be informed about, if you're looking at rental properties, the going rate for the area, so that you don't put in too much. But I think in Nigeria, the standard rule of thumb, the maximum is like 20 years. Maximum. In 20 years, you should, yes. But in many developing parts, some people enjoy this within a very short period, for as short as 5-7 years. Let me give you an example. Some people bought some terraces, they keyed into off plans in Guzape at 50-60 million 3-4 years ago. Yes, it took a while for the developers to finish, maybe 3 years, some of them even 4 years. But the moment it was time to start collecting rent, those properties in Guzape were worth, from 120, right? They're already doing 1.2, 1.3x already on capital appreciation, right? And then the rental value also ballooned. So now you can't get a 4-bedroom terrace in Guzape unless you have at least 7-8 million, thereabout. So now, compare that to, the 45, 50, 60 million that they put in. See that within a very short period of time, they'll get their money.
Well, even if you consider inflation, you still be at advantage. Even when I think our inflation rate is about 15%, thereabout, or 16%. You still be at advantage buying a property and maybe living it for 2-3 years.
Okay, before we go into the legal aspect of it, let's talk about the value of the city that we live in general. Because Abuja is, the rent don't they they skyrocket. So let's talk about I know there's one thing about I know about this country of ours is anything that goes up does not come down. If you're paying 800 last year and your landlord decides that you're paying 3 million this year, that is it. It's not coming down. So what do you think can happen to curb this? Because I feel like it's extortion at the end of the day. Because I know there are places that yes, you have to pay to live in those places. But then if you're not living in those places, why do you have to suffer what you are not? You did not born you when the thing happened.
I won't see it as extortion. Why I see it, okay, let's use this fuel price change as an example. Your landlord is affected as well. You understand? It's not buying fuel at 195. His cost of living has also yes. So you can't blame a landlord when they actually increase price. It's due to the current situations of things. The market is, he goes to the market just like you. He buys things too, so he has to increase his rent.
So when you're talking about that increment, that property in Asokoro, for those of you that don't know, sorry, they had already stopped paying service charge because the diesel price had increased. That's even before this fuel hike. I think this was like sometime last year. So already the service fee was, I think, 500, 600 thereabout. But the landlord had increased it to 1 million because the diesel price had increased. And then the tenants in the compound said the remaining change from the 500, you should keep it because you're not going to pay any extra. So now everybody had to go get generators, inverters, and then the people living in that area are coming to say that, oh, we don't like the noise. So now they are forced to pay that money. So who bears the cost for that loss? And then you're not even living in a property that is really giving you what you are offering, what you're paying for, pardon me. You get, so how do you convince people that, okay, you don't really have to live in the highbrow areas, you can live in these other areas and still get what you want to get?
So I don't think there will ever be a time existentialist. I know is that guy in me that is talking. I don't think there will ever be a time where we'll be satisfied as human beings, right? We'll always be trying to live twist things, right? I think it's in our nature. And I don't think there's any point in trying to tell people where to live, and eventually their pockets will tell them, right?
Your financial abilities.
So people who box themselves into those kinds of mentality and want to stay in one place because of stay in Metama, just be able to afford it. Now to buttress what Shola was talking about, sometimes the reason why the landlord will review is because you might be an old tenant. You've been there for 4 or 5 years. You are still enjoying the old rates. Then that same landlord builds another property in the same compound, for example. Maybe you are still paying 800, 1 million. And the going rate for that kind of house, even in the same compound, is 1.5. So it might be a strategy for the landlord to try to get you out so that you can get a new tenant in and be enjoying the current rate of things. Because at the end of the day, this landlord-tenant relationship,
Very dicey one.
Yeah, it's a very dicey relationship. And when you maintain a good relationship, you probably still be enjoying a good rate, So you can't really blame the landlords. Like, neither can you blame the tenants. Just like he has said, we're all,
we're all affected by what's happening.
All right, so let's talk about the legal aspect of it now, because when all of these things happen, people always say there is no law that said yada yada yada. And what are those things? Because I keep saying it every time, or rather I keep asking whenever we come on this show. What are those things that guide all these, unexpected changes in the business of real estate? The fuel hike, the price for the rents, whatever, going up, and then the cost for the properties itself. Because aside adding value to the property, you could just be passing by and seeing a property or off plan for 60 million. You go back there next week, it's already 80. Like, it was just last week, and this is just 7 days after. What happened? So what are the laws guiding these things, that even though it affects you or not, you know that at the end of the day it's still for your own good?
In terms of the laws, there are no laws.
Thank you very much.
There are no laws.
Thank you very much.
I don't think real estate in Nigeria is well defined. From the legal aspect, commission, everything, it's not well defined. We just roll with it. Really.
Vibes and inshallah.
Yeah, just vibes. Just vibes. So I think that's where the government comes in.
Yes.
That's where the
10th assembly try to figure
so in the last 5 years, based on vibes and inshallah, how much have you lost because of vibes and inshallah? Because there is no law guiding anything, and you must have had some losses. So if you're supposed to put a price tag on it in the past 5 years, vibes and inshallah, how much have you lost on the average?
No, we can't be saying that.
Exactly. No, we can't.
Okay, on a scale of 1 to 10.
Okay, we should also not be talking about. But and the reason is, this business is very fluid. You have good relationships with people tomorrow. Next tomorrow you might not. Maybe because of how a transaction went. So
might not even be your fault.
Thank you. So just so we don't. It's already in the past, and you don't want to start throwing blames around and start calling names. Let's just let that one go. So, but with the law, I feel like there's so much the government can do. Lagos State government, they enacted a law, I think 2 years ago, or thereabout, some sort of law that sort of governs
this whole thing.
Yes, in a way. So, but you have to remember that the Land Use Act is it's a federal law, right? And then it gives the states complete power over their land. So in order for this law thing to work, maybe the 36 states will have a similar law to what Lagos has, but something a lot more robust. I've not really had time to take my time through the entire Lagos law, but something similar for all the states. Then maybe another federal law to make it a thing where we have a structure for everyone that defines where a broker agent plays, and how they play, how a developer plays, and talk about pricing and all these things, and probably have tie into that's why the mortgage system does not work.
It doesn't work.
I think they say they're trying to bring it up to 50 million now. Maybe they just did. I don't know. But
work.
For a long time, the maximum cap was 15 million. 15
How
million
much
cannot get you into bedroom apartment.
You probably go to Kuje
or something.
you probably go to Bag.
That's like rental value of some properties in Asokoro Metana. So you can't be using the mortgage fee rental value to gain mortgage. Doesn't make sense.
Okay. I get what you mean.
All right. So last question.
Okay.
How would you rate real estate, Abuja and every other state in Nigeria? Well, when I say every other state, we all know that we're talking about Lagos. We all know that. We all know that we're talking about Lagos.
Touch our friends.
So no, it's all love here. So rental value in Abuja and Lagos, property buying value in Abuja and Lagos. Which would you rather go for? Which do you think is more beneficial to you or to your clients?
Well, for me, I like Lagos properties, but I can't live in Lagos. I love their the way they build their properties, their designs, and all that. I don't think we have so much of that in Abuja, yet. A few people are beginning trying to do that, but I'll prefer a Lagos. I think, and Lagos properties are cheaper than more affordable, than Abuja properties. Yes.
I think I also kind of agree. Okay. Yes, that Lagos properties are, and I also agree on the design part. The designs here are not that challenging. They are not that, and some of even these guys are now trying now in Abuja. You can see that they're sort of copying what's going on in Lagos. But I feel like, we can do better in the FCT. We can do a lot better.
Okay, so one last question. I know I said last question, but this is the last one. So back to the topic. What is that one advantage, excuse me, and disadvantage of either buying or renting a property? So you take one.
Okay, so let me start with disadvantage of buying, right? Except you buy in the wrong location. I don't think there are that many disadvantages. Then with advantage, obviously you get to enjoy capital appreciation whenever the property goes up. And now that we are expecting that our currency will stabilize a bit, so the people who bought a property at a certain price, maybe from the abroad, and they've had this problem of, I want to cash out. But when you want to cash out, you look at depreciation of the currency and all that. They will hopefully be able to cash out now or pump in more money. Now that they will have more confidence in real estate in Nigeria.
Okay, so I'll take advantage of buying. It helps you. It gives you the opportunity to build equity. Okay. You build wealth if you're patient. Even just like I mentioned before, if you look at the inflation, some people have done 100%. They've gotten 100% ROI in 2 years. And looking at inflation, they're still very okay. But then renting doesn't give you this opportunity. Yes, because it's someone's house.
Alright guys, so if you made it to this part of the video, you're a real OG. Thank you for staying. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And if you would like to either rent or buy any property of your choice here in Abuja, we have the OGs here in the studio, the Guinness World Record holders. So you could either contact Everything Property or Properties by Shola or any of the numbers shown on your screen right now for all your property inquiries. My name is Jess and I have Tayo and Shola with me in the studio. Until we see you again next time, bye-bye.